Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Morning, Rob.
Good.
Morning.
So, have you all caught up on some of Glenn's AI stuff? Yeah. Have you used anything yet?
Started using some.
Yeah, same.
What are you trying to do at the first level?
We're using it for some of our property descriptions and putting some information in, asking for some reports, including for marketing and farming the areas around us.
Have any of you used it to spy on your competition?
No. Should we?
I mean, it would be, I would like, hey, what's the people doing? The people doing business, how are they doing it? If you have the upgraded GBT, apparently it's doing some good research for you, giving you ideas on what they're doing. So, and then there's the how do you sell to somebody piece was pretty interesting.
With all due respect, the competitors post what they do on Facebook constantly, so it's not like a big mystery.
Or if you have time to keep up with it, right?
Yeah.
Whose iPhone? Is that Ron Piccolo? Is that Michael?
Hi, Michael.
Hey, how you
Hey,
guys?
Al, how you doing?
How are you?
Good. Happy Monday.
Yeah.
So today's attendance is going to be low because I put the word math in the description. Nobody wants to do math. But I think as team leaders, if we measure, what we're doing, then it's just a matter of doing more to get the output from your team members if they're not hitting what they need to do. I was conversing with one of the team leaders down here in Central Jersey. I'll protect the guilty, and they have 5 team members, and they did 3 open houses, Saturday and Sunday, and with 5 team members, they can only get 2 days of support.
That's
kind of I mean, you
that's
wonder
a
why
problem. Yeah, that's a problem I face as well. And
but
other
you wonder why they're not hitting their numbers. I'm like, how can the team leader be available both days and team members have a gazillion excuses? And we all have things that we need to do, and ironically, one of them, I think she's gonna part ways with one of the agents because one of them had a like a graduation party to go to at like 4:30, and the open house was 1 to 3 or 12 to 3, and they're both going to the same graduation, and it just shows you the mindset, right? And you're not doing them any favors if you're allowing that to happen, in my opinion. And that's why I say, business is math. And how many times do agents go to an open house and they come back with like nothing? For most of us, if you do, I don't know, who does more than one open house a month themselves? David? Anybody else here on the? Michael, do you do open houses or no?
Yeah, I did one Saturday. I do every week.
Do you get any good clients from it?
Yes, clients walked in without any buyer's agent.
Nice.
It's pretty successful.
And I think the math is probably 1 out of 3 you should get a transaction, right?
Correct.
And Mr. Golden, you're a big lister. Do you do any of your own open houses? Bobby?
Yeah, I'm here, Rob. Yes, I do them. It's probably been maybe 3 weeks since I've done it, but I got another one coming up, I believe, this weekend.
And do you do it to sell your house, or do you get predictable buyers from it over time?
I do it to service the listing.
Do you get any buyers from it?
I would say low percentage. The majority of people that have come to my open house have real estate agents, and they produce a business card or they have it on their phone, and they prove that they're working with another agent.
And
I
then you
find-
still-
I find a
Right.
lot of team leaders tend to throw it on their agents. And I think being in the field that way, besides just showing a buyer that you choose or a listing that you want to go represent at a higher price showing, being there at an open house, putting the signs out, being, boots on the ground, you really are going to be up to date on what the market truly is doing, what buyers are really saying. Hearing a buyer walk in and, explaining where they're coming from and their thoughts and what they're going through in their process really helps you give the right feedback to your sellers. So I think everybody should be held to do one even once a month, even if they have a very successful team, because it really gives you a lot of ammunition when you're talking to your clients and your team.
So I was watching, who's the guy that's the CEO of Curator with the beard? What's the guy's name? Anybody remember?
I have no idea.
I'll tell you in a second, but so he had the best contacts when his wife forced him to move out of the city. Let me see. And he was on a Tom Ferry event. What's his name? Jimmy Mackin. You guys all heard of him, Jimmy Mackin. And he's like, I moved out, my wife forced me to move out of the city. We're now in the burbs. And he's like, the mosquito guy comes by, says, hey, I was just in the neighborhood. I just want to see if you wanted to have any mosquito treatment. Like, no, I don't think so. He's like, are you sure? He's like, the mosquitoes from over there are going to need a place to go. So what do you think? And, I thought it was a cute marketing technique, but I also thought that, when you're in the neighborhood, it gives you relevance, right? Because you're already doing work there with your neighbors. And when you're doing open houses, are you doing the minimum, or are you extending that to try to build more listing business out at each and every one of them? Because chances are, if you don't do it all the time, you probably never do it. Right? And if you do it all the time, you probably never skip it. Right? That's like the system part of it and the math part of it. Does anybody still do the old, knocking around your listings, at least a few before the open house?
Absolutely. I think I'm finding a lot of agents, whether they've had their license a year or 5 years, I don't think anybody ever took the time to show them how to do a proper open house and what works and how they should track the people that walked in and or any certain type of follow-up. There's systems. I mean, you could plug in with KV Core and have them sign in on an iPad and have a whole process where they're immediately emailed, all the info on the neighborhood, the home, and then you're told when to follow up with them that night, the next day, and enough touches, you're going to have a higher percentage of business come to you. I think it's probably important. We have a call with our agents about that and how they're actually handling an open, how many signs they put out, depending if it's an HOA or not, what kind of call to action, what's grabbing people's attention to get them in the door, all that.
So,
There is, if anybody uses the momentum training that Remax bought, there's an excellent module, a momentum training for open houses. And it has scripts, follow-up. It's really, really good. And then pairing that with, as David said, with the Bold Trail tools is really powerful. We've given that training several times in the office. And it's pretty good. The other thing is, what's the guy's name that wrote the top Remax agent from LA?
Jordan
Wrote-
Cohen.
Yeah, thank you. I like what he says. He says he treats everyone that comes to his open house, he assumes they want to sell their house. So he almost always tries to get a follow-up appointment to see every guest that comes. He wants to go see their house and then he talks to them about listing their house. And he has pretty good success rate with that.
I think that also has to do with the quality of agent we're talking about. Most newer agents, what you just said, blow their mind. For them to go and follow up and go to each of their people that walked in their house, they don't think that's part of the role. Actually, it's the best thing ever if you can do that. But seeing that, you know, in practice versus theory, unless you're on this
I
call,
won't let him, yeah, I wouldn't let a new agent do an open house. I mean, I'm there with them if they're brand new, but after a while, yeah, I think they can do that.
I just find very few make that kind of push to follow up. Unfortunately, I'd love to see more. We'd have a lot more sales in our company for sure.
How many of our team members do you think have a grade B or above on their CRM? If you wanted to be honest, like what percentage of your team members, if you said, come in, let's go through your CRM, they'll get a B or higher?
Probably less than 20%.
I'd agree with that, unfortunately.
So isn't that, I mean, that's tragic, right? And Bobby, you said that with conviction, and I tend to believe you. How do you change that?
I don't know. It's the one thing that I want to say browbeat, but I'm constantly bringing it up to the people in the office. Anything that I talk about, I follow it up, and I do it somewhat sarcastically. And I'm saying, well, just reference your database, your CRM, you know, because I know darn well they don't have one. And then I'll look at them and say, well, you have that set up, don't you? Oh, no, well, I'm working on it, Bobby, you know. So how do you correct it? I don't know how you correct it. Someone has to, just like you said before, the mindset. Someone just has to get their act together and make it a priority.
So you say 20%, Lynn or Chopper, Patrick, what do you think your team members get a B or above on their CRM setup? I'm not even going into whether or not they use it appropriately. I'm just saying, can they, with a click of a button, give us all the people that they worked with that bought or sold from them? Like, here's all the people that bought a house. Here's the people that listed a house with me by clicking a button.
My entire team. We made it one of our team meetings. We sat down and we went over CRMs and what they needed to do to put it together. And then they had a week to get everything in the system,
Including Amber?
including Amber.
Okay, very good. But you do have, Lynn has weekly in-person meetings and people actually show up.
Yes.
How about Michael?
I would say 100%. We use this system called Trello. Another, I don't know if you guys ever heard of it. It's a pretty cool CRM platform.
What was it called? I'm sorry.
Trello, Trello.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we on the lead it tells you different steps of the lead, like if it's warm, if it's hot, if it's like, and we update it every single contact, and that's a great way for agents to track the progress. Is a great way to see their last communication, like the last call was happy birthday and different things like that, and it gives you alerts of when their birthdays is and when to follow up. So I would say 100. We spend like all of our time on the follow-up in our CRM, our team.
Patrick or Chopper?
We have conversion. They get alerted. What we're doing with open houses now, we incorporated some AI that after someone comes to the open house, that there's some generated text and interaction with them to see if there's any urgency, if there's any stickability. if the, but as far as conversion goes, they have it, they use it. They're not using it as frequently as they should. They run hot and cold. And that's on me because I don't ride them about it. I don't have a program set up like that Chief Baker has, you know, that it's a 24/7 thing.
Rob, can I chime in?
Yeah.
It just occurred to me, even if I went to one of our agents and said, do me a favor, just do last year's production, all the stuff that you did, put those people in the database. That's why it's not done, because it's such a tedious, boring task to sit down there and even go back 90 days, 120 days, and look up names and addresses and phone numbers, however you're, on your, however you're keeping track of it. But to put it in a CRM is like watching grass grow. So that's, it just occurred to me, that's why my agents aren't doing it, because that particular task is boring as hell.
Yeah, you can't let it get away from you.
And-
Gotta do it at least every week to get it.
Yeah,
caught
and
up.
you're exactly correct, but that's the problem.
I know.
So now I guess I have to say, don't do your past year, do the last 30, 60 days. So let's just say 2 or 3 transactions, the last 2 or 3 transactions that you did, put those people in your database, in your CRM. So that's how I got to break it down to get it done.
And Bobby, what condition is your CRM in?
It's not great, but it's extensive. I'm working on it, scrubbing it, because I signed up with Brian Buffini Coaching, and one of the things I want to do is scrub up my my database. But I have over 5,600 names in my database of all kinds, buyers, sellers, contractors, that sort of thing. But my database is over 5,600.
That's incredible. And is that people who just came to your open house make it there as well, or no?
Well, the one thing that I do differently is that, and I'll be doing it, some of it today is, for an example, I was out knocking on doors yesterday. So I knocked on 40 doors. I talked to 10 people. Of the 10 people that means I'm sending out 10 thank you cards for taking the time to talk to me, even though I was unannounced. And I partnered up with a friend of mine here in town that owns a bagel place. So I bought 20 $5 gift certificates to her bagel place. So the 10 cards I send out today are going to be a thank you with a $5 gift card to my friend's bagel place. So, but that's 10 names that are going to go into my database this week.
And how many people slammed the door in your face?
0.
And
0.
We didn't even rehearse that, but I kind of suspected that.
No, yesterday was a nice day. The weather was good. People were generally, and I had good conversations. No one's selling now, but within a year, I have a feeling I'm going to get at least one listing from yesterday. But generally speaking, people were very pleasant.
And were you knocking before an open house or just randomly?
It's a property that we sold, so an under contract listing that I have, and I just went up and down the street and just said, hey, we recently sold the property, a couple blocks away. We still have buyers looking to move into the neighborhood. How about yourself? Are you thinking of selling? And again, the people I spoke with said, no, that's okay. And I said, well, here's my mailer piece with my contact information. If you know of anybody or if your situation changes, please keep me in mind. I said, oh, sure, no problem. It's fine.
And you just did that as one of your prospecting activities.
Yes, because, in my section of Jersey, the weather hasn't been the greatest. So I haven't knocked on doors all last week. So it was really the one day that I had the opportunity. I jumped on it. And believe me, the biggest thing for me was that when I was done and I got back in the car, I felt like I did something for the day. I felt like I accomplished something, and that just set a better tone for the rest of my day.
And what time did you go on a Sunday?
12:30 to 1:30.
So you hit 40 doors in 1 hour, huh?
Yep. And
I
that's
bet
what,
you.
really all I intended to do. I was only going to give it an hour or so, but I was able to get the whole street in. If it took me a little bit longer to get the street in, I would have, but it only took me approximately an hour.
Well, congrats. And, the thing that kills me, Bobby, is there's so many people that aren't doing business that don't have time to do that, which is ironic, right? It goes back to businesses, math, and systems. Do you try to knock around every closed transaction that you have?
Well, it's either a new listing, an under contract, or, so for an example, this listing that is under contract, it's going to close by the end of the month. When it closes, I'm not going to lie, I'm not going back out there to knock on doors to tell them it closed, but I will send everybody a letter on the street to say, something to the effect of, hey, I was out in your neighborhood a couple of weeks ago, just want to let you know that property closed.
Okay, and that's something that you do consistently, I'll use the term, right?
Well,
It's
not,
like,
I'll be honest, Rob, not as consistently as I should, but it's again, I'm just trying, I'm a experienced agent that has a pretty good business, nothing to be ashamed of, but I got to get my acting gear. And I think you've said it a million times, success breeds bad habits. I'm the king of that. So I got to change my habits.
good markets breed bad habits.
Yeah.
Changing markets need good habits. So yes. I mean, yet 1 hour, and you think you might get a transaction out of it in the next year or two. The other challenge is, Bobby, a lot of people, if it's not now, they don't put in their CRM, they have no follow-up system, and then that hour is wasted, right?
Without question, and that's the key. But if you, again, I have 10 names, addresses, some phone numbers, but that's 10 people that are going to go in my database either. So if I don't have their phone number, they're still going to be part of my mailing list. That's the category.
Right.
I have them down as mailing list. So that means when I send out a quarterly mailer, a neighborhood mailer, or whatever, they're still going to hear from me. But again, and I don't want to give the wrong impression. This is something I've been pretty lax in. So I have to improve what I've always done. I just have to get better at being me.
What I like about that, Bobby, and I, just I'll share what was going through my brain as you were talking. I thought, well, I don't want to do door knocking, and I really don't want to do that. My HOA won't allow it, which is true. But then I thought, if you have a team, Bobby, and they know you door knocked, it sure is easier to get them to door knock. And I think that's probably, in my mind, the most important reason to do it.
And I'll just touch base on, and thank you. I'll touch base on what you just said. So you're worried about your HOA. I'm not sure what market you're in or where you live, but get outside the HOA. Go find another neighborhood that you could go knock in. Don't worry about what someone can or can't do. But I do that as well. So if I have a slow stretch, I might find, and I'm just using Glenn Baker just because he's a name we all recognize. If I see Glenn Baker lists a property in my neighborhood, I'm going to go knock on the doors in the neighborhood. I'm going to say, hey, there's a property that came up for sale down the street. Do you know of anybody looking to move into the neighborhood? So I get, the one thing I do is I use other agents' listings.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a reason to canvas.
And then Beth, the thing I would do is I'd ask for forgiveness instead of surrender. And I've convinced people that I'm not soliciting before many times. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's pretty strict. I mean, it would be, it's also, in my neighborhood, it wouldn't be a good idea. But as Bobby points out, there are other neighborhoods where you could do it no problem. You know, our agent Ryan door knocked in Celebration, and I got a call from another broker owner, not a Remax, obviously, an independent. And she said, you know, your agent has been, and in fact, he knocked on her door and talked to her husband. And so she calls me and says, you know, that's not allowed. You know, that's in our ordinances and our declarations that no door knocking. And I was like, okay, well, you know, I'll have a talk with him. All right. So then I called him, and the two of us looked through everything we could find in Celebration. We could find nothing that said that you couldn't do it. I mean, other than if someone has a sign in their yard that says no solicitation, or they ask you not, you know, then you can't, then you don't go to that house. But we really couldn't find anything that said you couldn't do it. So we ended up, I said, hey, if you want to do it, do it. You know, just follow the rules of, if people, you know, say don't come to my house, then don't go there anymore. But in my particular neighborhood, it would be, they could call the police. It could get ugly. Unless I was selling solar panels, of course, and I, you know, could get away with it.
Oh, anyway, if I'll probably bite my tongue on this, but I don't know that I've came across anybody that's ever got a ticket for door knocking, even if they're supposed to have a permit.
I know,
Maybe,
I know. You're right.
maybe it's because we just don't do it enough, or maybe it's just because, you know, people have, you know, oh, here's a warning, just don't go do it again. But does anybody know of anybody getting a ticket
No.
or a fine for door knocking?
Well, Stephen got a
No,
written
I
one.
probably overstated that. I mean,
Steven?
here's what I like to do is I like to wear my Remax shirt while I walk the dog. That's my, and that actually, you know, I do get in conversations that way.
And what happened to Stephen
He got a written warning
from the
from
police?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that once in Paramus.
That's the worst that will happen, really.
It wasn't
I-
even the person, it wasn't even the person's house he was at, it was the one across the street called it in.
Yeah. But I also had, with Lisa Hoffman, the police officer take us in his car and walk us through his house and say, what do we think he could sell it for?
That's awesome.
That probably looked a little weird, but he's like, come on, I'm 4 blocks away, you know, I'm gonna be retiring. So true story on that. So 1 out of 2 with police engagements.
Agent I
we're-
follow posted this today. Most agents are worried about bothering strangers. Sounds like that's what we're talking about here. While their bills are bothering their family. So we have a lot of agents that pretend to be full-time, that really do part-time hours when it comes to money-making activities. I think they're worried about things, like you just said, nobody's gotten really arrested. You know, we all worry and are, you know, worried about bothering people, but you know, it's like, just go and do it.
Well, how about I wrap it up with this, and it's you know, when you are truly providing a service, not just groveling for a commission, I think what you do is you provide a irreplaceable value to somebody, and if you're good at it, you have more than a financial incentive, but you have a moral obligation to help people, right? Like if you're you know, walking down the street and somebody falls and they're hurt, are you just gonna walk past them, or you say, you know, sir or ma'am, can I, like, it's common decency. It's like a moral code that we have to try to help people. But you know, we kind of conflict that with the fact that we're entitled to get paid when we do it well. And I just think that, you know, last Friday we had some good conversations about you know, how to position, buying and selling differently, right? So that people aren't afraid, so that people can have all the information to make the right decision, to control the narrative of what's going on. And if we can control the narrative, we know what we're doing. Forget about, putting more zeros in your bank account. We have a moral obligation to help as many people as we can. If that makes any sense. So I think that will motivate people more than money, because sometimes people feel awkward about charging somebody for a service. But if they're helping somebody, it makes it easier to be consistent, and it makes it easier to have those conversations. So when we look at it through that lens, maybe that makes it just a tad bit easier. And I know we're at 9:01 here. I want to let everybody go. I see Fred and Adona, you're on for the next meeting, right?
That's correct. Hi.
Yes, sir.
All right, team leaders, have a fantastic week. And I'll be down in Florida later this week, everybody. See you there.
See
You
ya.
too.
Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Bye bye. Take care.